Hey, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
All is well, man. Sorry for the tardiness.
Oh yeah, no problem. Just want to say thank you for joining me today. Super excited to have this chat with you. Not only that, but as my wife calls it, I'm a babe in Christ, and you were one of the people
Oh,
that,
word.
you were one of the people that really came up when I started to search for new things to consume. So I'm also double excited about that as well to get to know you a little bit better. I did get some talking points from your team, but I kind of didn't want to hold up too much of your time, so I know how to kind of creatively just write that into the article. I want to get more
Oh,
into who you are and how you feel about certain things, and that way we can cultivate an article that's just a little bit different than surface level information that we usually get from artists. So hopefully, whatever you don't feel comfortable answering, of course you could say, I don't feel like answering. I'm not a shock jock or anything like that, so it's a safe space for you to talk.
so
So first off, I just want to ask you, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you asking, bro. Like even just how you started off is encouraging and dope to hear. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Cool. I heard this morning you had another interview that was pretty big on Atlanta TV. How did that
Oh
work
yeah,
out for you, or how did you start your day to prepare for that?
man. You know what? I know and I realize that if I don't kind of cultivate a habit of refreshing my mind, restoring my body, then I'm no good. So typically for me, it's like let me listen to a podcast or a song or something that just puts me in the right frame of mind before I start my day. And that's what I did today, just to you know awaken the senses and be prepared to endure the day.
Cool. And not to give too much free credit out there about what Lecrae likes or who Lecrae listens to, but give me an example of like what's getting Lecrae pumped right before an interview.
Yeah, I mean, usually it'll be, some younger artists that I've just been listening to. A lot of this guy named Jay Monty. I've been enjoying his music. I've been in a little bit of funk, musically. So I like music, like the sound of funk, not like I'm in a musical funk.
No, I
But
got you.
and then podcast wise, you know, I save the stuff that is enjoyable or juicy for me, like a hip hop podcast, for the later in the day. So maybe like Joe Budden or something's later in the day. But in the morning, I may listen to something more spiritual, from a Tony Evans to a John Mark Comer, some leaders or pastors along those lines.
Okay, so faith gets you pumped up, and of course, I wouldn't
Yeah,
expect that from Lecrae. That's what's up.
for
Um,
sure.
with that being said, I just want to touch on uh, balance, like how you balance your life. You have Reach Records, you have the Deep End podcast. You also are co-owner of the B Side app, and of course, you have the three beautiful children, your wife, and now you want to drop a single, "Lift Me Up." How do you balance all these things being one person who's maybe a little bit older than LeBron James?
um, I don't. That's the thing, is I think balance um is an ideal. I strive for tension, healthy tension. Balance is the idea that you really have it all, kind of juggling it in a good way. I strive more for tension, and tension is like, man, I may be stretched a little too far over here, so let me come back over here. And I try to find ways to incorporate the valuable things. So, I want to do some work within the city. I want to be a visible voice and presence in the city. I want to entertain, and I want to, work with other organizations, and I want to be connected with my family. So, hey, let's do something with the Atlanta Hawks or the Atlanta Dream, where I bring my family to the game. We all get to enjoy the game together. I may be doing some business in terms of like working out how to collaborate on some merchandise with them. And then let's do something for the city. So let's create a performance or something along those lines. So I try to incorporate all the worlds as best as I can, just to make sure that I'm having a healthy tension.
So I'm actually a newlywed as well. Just got married in November. I heard your answers, but they're also very Lecrae centric. And coming from
Ah,
someone who has a wife, like
yeah,
how do you balance that kind of time as well? Because now you have to be a
yeah.
husband too. And I'm sure she loves going to the games or loves going to your shows. But what do you guys find to do together, or what do you guys enjoy?
Yeah, so that's the thing I learned is, you know, you gotta prioritize, right? So when it comes to life, the first thing, if I'm talking to a newly married man, I'll say the first thing you need to prioritize is yourself. That sounds selfish, but if you just stick with me, I'll make it make sense. I'll say if you're not emotionally, spiritually, or mentally healthy, you're no good for anybody else around you. So prioritize your emotional, mental, and spiritual health so that you can be a good husband. Then you can prioritize taking care of your wife, right? Because that's a part of you. So making sure that y'all are on the same page. And I was just blessed. I was fortunate that my wife is an avid sports fan. So we love sports together. It's our thing. We went to the Olympics together. We go to our kids' games together. We go to sporting events in the city together. I just was extremely fortunate to have a wife like that. But if she was really into ballet, I would become a ballet fan for the sake of getting quality time with her.
Got it. Got it. That's, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's still very impressive. Like, even myself, when I'm trying to manage, what I do for a living is travel writing. So I travel a lot. And I'm lucky to be able to bring my wife along because she loves travel. And that's how we met and we got along. So those things are fun. But sometimes it's still not enough. They want to do
Right.
other things and they want more time. And,
Right.
I'm just, when I get to meet other married men or people that have been successful and they're married, it's a good question for me to ask. And I think for anybody that's reading as well, we are a male based magazine. That's what our following is. And I just want to give people information that's useful for life. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
can ask you all the other things, but let's get to some real life ish.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Deep End Podcast. Now, I was able to tap into a couple of the other episodes. Actually, before I knew that I was going to interview you, there was an episode that my wife got in touch with, which was the one where the young lady is converted from being a lesbian and Christianity kind of got her married now, and she preaches all over.
Uh-huh.
What I would say most about your podcast. Um, I think you do it really well because you have a level of vulnerability. And for someone to just go into different lanes like you do and be able to excel, like what made you even want to start the podcast to begin with?
Yeah, a lot of people think that. Well, I would agree the podcast space can be very oversaturated. However, I realize that I'm a hybrid. So because of the different worlds that I live in, I did not feel like there was a voice that was speaking to me. I felt like I had to compartmentalize myself to receive information. I'm a big hip hop fan, so I can get adult contemporary perspectives on hip hop from a Joe Budden or Charlamagne the God. I'm a thinker. I'm a thought leader. There may be some podcasts that stimulate my mind. I am a very faith oriented person. It's essential to my being. There may be podcasts that talk about that. I wasn't finding that collective that could speak to all of those elements. Speak to my faith, me being, a thinker who wants to process information, and then being a product of hip hop culture, but an adult. You know what I mean? So I wanted to make something that spoke to all those lanes. What does marriage look like, and how does my faith inform that? What does music look like? Does my faith inform that? What does business or finances look like? Does my faith inform that? And but not in a let me open up the scriptures and preach to you what the Bible says, but let's have a conversation and a dialogue in terms of what real life looks like when you're navigating your faith. And I just wanted to create what I didn't have. And so that's why I started it.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up hip hop because it was something that came to mind. I remember when I guess not really peaking, but when you were starting out, you kind of caught on a lot like during maybe 2014, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's when I guess mainstream people like myself at that time in my life, I was like a promoter in New York or something like that. But we all knew who Lecrae was. Like, it was like Drake and then Lecrae, and it was odd, you know. But what I really want to ask you is like, do you still find yourself feeling competitive when it comes to rap? Because when you do listen to your music, I know technically you are really really good from a technical
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it. I always wondered, are you still competitive? But also, did you feel like there was a window where you could have went secular and you just didn't take it?
Mm. To the competitive aspect of it, I think when I was younger, I had a chip on my shoulder and I had something to prove. I think in this season of my life, I've got a lot of my secret sauce is not my competitive edge. My secret sauce is my experience. So I'm more in a space when I'm creating to, like, that's my weapon now. Is how can I articulate my experience in music? I have nothing to prove at this point. Now, technically, yes, I always want to challenge myself to be as technically sharp as I can be as an artist. We've all heard some of our favorite artists that just lose a step as they get older. I don't want to be that person. And then as far as becoming a mainstream or secular artist, I never saw a delineation. I didn't see like, I'm going to go the gospel route or I'm going to go the mainstream route. I just was creating music. There were no lanes in my mind as I was creating. I just kind of landed somewhere and was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And then I broke some of those rules. And they said, hey, you can't do that over here. And I was like, I never knew I was a part of this box. So that was never really a thought for me of like, man, I wish I could go secular. It was more so, I want to talk about my faith, or maybe I want to do a song with E40 or Ty Dolla $ign. I'm just going to do the music I want to do, and it lands wherever it lands.
Yeah, so it's actually like you're saying, and I've seen it in a lot of your conversations before, that you were a rapper that loved Jesus.
That's right.
And in hip hop, what we do is we speak our truth. So it is hip hop first before you put the Christian in front of it. So I totally understand that point. But also, you spoke on sharp, and what came to mind, I wanted to make sure that I talk to you about this, is your personal style. I saw it a lot in your podcast videos and things like that, and I was just like, oh, okay, I thought you were younger actually, until of course I looked on Wiki and I was just like, oh no, we're around the same age. I do like your personal style. I like the casualness of it. It's still pretty fresh. It's not too young. It's just right.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, who inspires your personal style, or what inspires it, or do you kind of like see what the kids are doing and be like, okay, I'm not gonna go this far, but I'll do this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that's so funny you asked that. I came to a place where I was wondering, like, when I look out there in the atmosphere, I don't see people dressed like me, right? And I was like, man, is it time to like put on the Dockers and like what is it time for? Because that's what you tend to think as you get older, like, oh, I gotta change it up. And then I came to a realization. I said, no, clothing is actually an expression of culture. And so if I'm in Nigeria, I don't like people, regardless of age, are wearing certain traditional garbs because that's an expression of their culture. And I thought to myself, I said, I'm a part of hip hop culture. And that's the culture that I most identify with. And so I want to be an expression of that. But a mature adult version, not a Gen Z version of hip hop expression.
Right.
And so for me, what I just started looking for was like, you know, a little more of a more of an adult streetwear-esque type of style. And I would say Jerry Lorenzo is the embodiment of that, you know, for a lot of us with Fear of God. You know, he's a product of hip hop culture, but there's a level of sophistication to his streetwear. So I guess that's what it is. It's like a sophisticated, you know, streetwear. So that's the best way I can articulate it. But I never want to feel like, man, I've got to like lean into the business casual look because I'm older. I want to feel like I can be an authentic expression of who I am, regardless of how old I am.
Yeah, and I think what's most important is when you're Black or someone of color, we belong to so many things, you know? And it's like, right. How are we able to maintain our identity when we do get older? You know, like we don't want to show up to places in big baggy jeans and Timberlands everywhere we go. You know what I'm saying? So right. That's why I was like, yeah, I'm going to give him his props on, you know, his swag, because sometimes when I'm getting dressed at home, my wife is like, I think that's not your age group. So we kind of have to like, you know, check ourselves and be like, all right, well, this is what I'm going to step into today.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about, well, first I want to talk about Still Here, and then I want to get back to the podcast and some of the things you say, but everything kind of leads into each other. I want you to tell me about these lines and just tell me where you were when you said it. Now, well, my first question is, Still Here, does that have a double meaning?
Mm-hmm. It absolutely does. On one end of the spectrum, it is very much that, man, God, are you still here in the midst of all the trials and tribulations that I'm enduring? On the other end of the spectrum, it's saying, in light of the trials and tribulations that I have endured, I'm still here. So I'm still pushing forward. I survived the chaos, whatever it looks like. And then there's a bleed over of, you know why I'm still here? Because God is, right. You know what I mean? And you know, so there's that combination piece. But I always, when I'm writing music, I always want to do what I call double speak. And that is, you know, oftentimes there's a meaning within the meaning. There's a surface level, or one audience may understand it, and there's another perspective that other people may understand. You know, in politics, they would say it's dog whistling. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, hey, what did he just say? Only the people who know, but other people heard a completely different thing. But both of them are relevant and matter. And that's kind of what I try to do when I'm creating music.
No, that's awesome. Like, I really want you to tap in now, because it's going to get kind of personal. So I just want to know, I've been up for like 24, feeling down for like 20 more. Feels like life's winning 2-0, and this my last chance to bring it home. Help me, I surrender, got no tears left to cry. Hands to the sky, can you give me a sign? Where are you here when you're putting this down on paper?
Yeah, so, you know, I have a lot of content to draw from pretty much 2018 through 21. You know, some of the darkest moments in my life are in that span of time. And so as I'm writing, I can now write from the outside looking in to where I was. Because during that time period, I don't think I had the energy to even express the pain that I was going through. I would journal a little bit. And what I was dealing with was, I mean, some would say a midlife crisis. Sure, if that's what you want to call it. Some would say a nervous breakdown. Some would say a faith crisis. I think all of them fit in that category. You know, my wife and I were having some very tough times, and it was like, man, do I even want to still be in this relationship? God, do I still even believe that you're real? I'm dealing with some church hurt. I'm dealing with some relational issues. And I'm just challenged to stay focused and still be present and be an executive and be a father. And I was like, I don't have it. I just don't have it. And so, you know, thank God for therapy. Thank God for good friends. But I had to get through some very tough times.
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to touch on. In your conversation with Montel Jordan, you speak of having, that you were in a dark place, and I was wondering if you could just describe that moment that said to you, "Yo, I'm tapping on rock bottom here. Like, I need to get help right now."
Yeah. I think there's a few moments, right? I think we all, the way I would articulate it is, I was like a glass of water with a napkin on top, and someone put a rubber band on that napkin. And over the course of my life, there have been little drops of water on top of that napkin. And I would ignore it. Oh man, I'm stressed out, some business situation, drop of water. Man, I'm getting persecuted and belittled, drop of water. Man, I felt some microaggressions or racial tension, drop of water. Man, me and my wife are at odds, drop of water. And then I think I was masking it, or I was escaping this flimsy now paper towel on top of my glass by drinking all the time. So alcohol became like a crutch. Just like, I don't feel like dealing with this right now, so let me just drink. And so the drinking became overwhelming to one day I woke up and that wet paper towel had just busted. Mm-hmm. And I woke up, hungover, and I thought, oh, I'm hungover, let me shake this off. And I couldn't shake it off, and I was like, what the heck is going on? I found out I was in clinical depression. Just the weight of everything and so many ruminating thoughts of, am I a good dad? Am I gone too much? What if this happens? What if I get divorced? I'm just constantly thinking of all these things, and it just broke. And I was like, I'm at the worst. I can't fix myself at this juncture. And I'm grateful now, because if I wouldn't have been in that place, I would have just tried to keep pushing. But I couldn't fix my brain, so I knew I needed help.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you spoke on it. I'm even personally going through something like that, where you just get overwhelmed, but you didn't find the way to kind of like, it's hard to find a way to express yourself, or you think people just won't understand, so you just keeping it to yourself. And as the same, I had to go get therapy and still had to figure things out, which also led me to becoming more faith-based in the things that I consumed. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, which was, what's great is that you have a podcast, so it's easy to like kind of pick certain things to talk to you about personally. I wanted to discuss just a conversation with your mom. At some point you asked her about the absence of your father, and you wanted to know how she felt. But I wanted to know how you felt when it came to the absence of your father, and what do you think you did to kind of fill the void and make sure that you were more of a present father for your children now that you have all these things going on as well?
Man, the funny thing about it is I did not learn that I had all these coping mechanisms for my dad not being there until I went to therapy. So as a kid, I didn't know that I was sad or I was hurt. I felt it, but I could not pinpoint my actions to that hurt. So, I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted because I felt like he rejected me. And so a lot of times I found myself in the arms of a woman to like, hey, show me I'm valuable. I'm worth something. And, I became addicted to just that feeling of someone saying, you matter, you're valuable. But we all been in relationships. After a while, that enchantment stage goes away. and that's not the nature of the relationship. So then I'm jumping into another one, so I became like a serial monogamist, chasing that feeling of enchantment of somebody saying you matter, to where then it just turned into I'm just an objectifier, because I don't really I know what this is now. I know I'm not going to want to stay with you long term, so I'm just going to objectify you because I just want you for your body and for you to tell me I'm the most amazing person in the world. And so, that takes a toll on you. Then you just start living a lifestyle that is out of control because you don't know what it means to be a stable man. And I think that's where a lot of the drugs and the drinking and the chaos came into play. After meeting the Lord and just finding a sense of peace and wholeness, I had a sense of purpose and a reason to live, other than objectifying women and getting high and so on and so forth. I just had to grow in that process. In growing, I probably became hyper vigilant in trying to be the father that I never had. So almost to the degree where I may be smothering my kids. I may be like overbearing, because I'm so fearful of them feeling the feelings I feel. Hey, where you going? Did you call? Did you do this? What's going on? What's up? We hanging out? We need to do dinner at the same time every night. It's like, yo, chill, bro. They're not going to be you. Y'all lives are way different. So the good part is I'm very intentional. I'm always trying to create family time moments. We do regular scheduled things. We do movies together. We have heavy conversations. I share my life with them. The tough part is I'm not perfect, so I'm gonna overcompensate for my struggles and my fears, and so I have to fight the fear that rises up in me that my kids will have the same issues I had and not be overbearing. And so I've had to learn to wrestle with that.
And do you also believe that it's kind of made you a much better communicator for your children as well?
My kids will never have to worry about what dad is thinking. Like never. You know what I mean? I never had any insight into the minds of that generation above us. You know what I mean? Like they weren't trained to like process their emotions. And so I give them a lot of grace because they don't have the mental categories to even go there with that level of transparency. My mom, that's a muscle she had to grow. My dad, the one time we got to sit down and have a conversation, 30 some years later, and I said, hey, are you sorry for anything that you've done? He said, sorry is the sorriest word in the dictionary. I never use sorry. My dad came home from Vietnam. He didn't whine to us and tell us, oh, he's feeling bad and he wishes he could have been there. I'm not doing all that stuff. And I was like, you don't have the mental categories to even know that's a necessary or possible thing. So I give you grace because that's a lifetime of growing that you would need to have.
Yeah, I feel like our generation had to learn to forgive the previous generation because I come from immigrant parents as well, and they weren't taught anything about mental health or being a free spirit or trying to pursue your dreams. Like none of that, right. That didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? So all I could do is just be grateful that they had me and, be patient and glad that at least my mom is still around and try to create, right. Just a great rest of her life while we're here.
Thanks.
So I want to tap into, a hypothetical. Let's say there was a Lecrae State of the Union. Lecrae's able to talk 1 minute all over the TVs and on everyone's phone to black men. What would you say to black men in that 1 minute of the Lecrae State of the Union?
Woo. That's wow. That's heavy. I think there's a misnomer that we're not trying and we're not present. I think we're pushing back on that stigma. But in pushing back on that, we have to remind ourselves that we're fighting an uphill battle, and that we're doing this so that our ceiling is someone else's floor. We're not going to get all the credit for the hard work, the labor. We're doing therapy, we're doing counseling, we're pouring into our kids and trying to be present fathers and husbands. But we've got to recognize that we're part of a 1%. You talk about Black Africans being taken from the continent, the diaspora being tortured and beaten and emasculated, and we're still here. We're still here. You got to give yourself some credit for enduring that diasporic journey to thrive right now, and be gracious to yourself, because it is going to be a battle, but it's a battle worth fighting. So keep pushing.
Awesome. I want to go into another tangent real quick. I don't know how much time you have, but I want to ask you, how do you guys travel a lot? Do you and your family travel often?
Yeah, we do. We try to at least twice a year if we can.
What are like, what would you consider a travel experience in the Lecrae household?
We recently went to Europe as a family. Partially because I want my kids to see the world, to have a broader perspective. I only dreamed about seeing the world. I never saw it till I was an adult. So there's a lot of like, hey, we're going to do a mixture of connecting and learning. And, I'm good at cultural curation, but I'm not good at administration or logistics, or like where we should go.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, you worry about all the tickets, babe. You worry about the flights and because we'll all be on different itineraries if you leave it to me. You know what I mean? So that's my wife's view.
And what was your favorite vacation with your wife?
Favorite? We really love London. You know what I mean? Like, London was just an amazing time. Oh, we recently went to Puerto Rico as well. I forgot about that. But London was probably our favorite because we all enjoyed it. It wasn't just somebody's amazing trip. It was like we all enjoyed it for different reasons.
And how important do you think it is for Black people to travel?
What? Yo, I would say this. I'd say read if you can't travel, but travel is the best way to learn. Like, if you can't travel, read, but if you can travel, travel. Because information is not transformation. Experience transforms us, especially with like young Black folks who really believe like all they got to do is read, watch a video or a podcast, and then they'll get it. Like, you can read every book on driving a semi-truck in the world. Nothing is going to prepare you to get behind that wheel and be on the highway in a semi. Nothing. So travel is your best source of transformation, growing, and learning. You gotta travel.
And like, now when it comes to travel, I deal a lot in the luxury space and kind of showing people, Black and brown people, what luxury travel really is and how we can all be a part of it, because it's not necessarily marketed to us. I wanted to know, how do you define luxury?
I would say luxury is when you can achieve contentment in your travels, right? So contentment, like, you may not like maybe I've traveled so much that the details of something are frustrating for me, right? Like, where's this at? Where's that at? I don't know how to get to there. So luxury is having, a concierge there. But for someone else, they're just content to be out of the country. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, man,
right.
I'm out of the country, bro. So luxury to me is when you're in a state of contentment, when you can say, this is great. And that doesn't necessarily have to cost a lot. You got to know your own boundaries, your own limitations, and where you are. But don't chase what LeBron has because you think that's what luxury is. He went to Turks and he stayed in a particular place where he didn't have to worry about paparazzi. You don't have paparazzi.
Right.
You don't need to stay there. You can have the same sense of contentment that he can have at a different place in Turks and Caicos. So I would just say, man, search for peace and contentment, and that should be luxury for you.
Cool. And then my last question, I promise. I usually ask this to a lot of successful people. If someone were to ask you who you are, and another person were to ask you what you do you find yourself giving them the same answer?
If I'm being honest, I would actually appreciate somebody to ask me what I do because I typically just get assumed that I'm an athlete whenever I go somewhere. I'm like 6'4" and broad shoulders. So it's like, oh, you're on this flight and in this country. Who do you play for? And I'm like, no one.
Right.
But the core of your question, I think I want to be known as a human being, not a human doing. You know what I mean? I want to be known for who I am, not what I do. That may not always come out when I'm asked the question, because I'm still in that journey, in that process of separating what I do from who I am. I know who I am, and I have a firm grasp on my identity, and it's far beyond anything I've done. But it takes a minute, a second to get a person out of slavery. It takes a lifetime to get the slavery out of a person.
Yeah.
So the slavery of constantly feeling like my worth is my work is a fight I'm purging myself of on a regular basis.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Lecrae. I appreciate this time.
Yeah. No, thank you, brother.
This was an amazing conversation, and honestly, man, I admire you. I think that I hope you get to talk to more people and just continue to inspire them and keep it up because B-Side, Deep End, Reach Records, all those things are amazing, and it's great for your legacy. And thank you again.
Appreciate you, bro.
Take care.
Much love. All right. Be blessed.
Luxury Travel News.